Persons attempting to find a motive in this narrative will be prosecuted. Persons attempting to find a moral in it will be banished. Persons attempting to find a plot in it will be shot.
Create something real and vivid and stirring to yourselves, because we have 31 characters and 4 actors demonstrating a journey of 1,100 miles, and whatever you can do to really make those images come to life, to make them personal for you.
When Huck goes through all of her conscience, musing and battling with his conscience about being a low-down abolitionist and about the choice to go to hell. We don't want to iron it out. We want to point it up so that it is perfectly clear that the jarring disparity is there. That Huck does not believe, as most of us hopefully in this day and age believe, that equality and for all peoples is good, but in fact does believe that equality will, and if he supports the cause of Paul, he's going to get him into hell. We want to make those things pop. We don't want to send them under the radar.
Because the play tells the truth, it is inevitably ugly and scary. Pearl Clegg, a wonderful Atlanta playwright, gave the keynote address at the Southeastern Theater Conference this year. She's an African-American playwright and a wonderful author. And a key element of her speech was how censorship is removing us from looking at the truth. And she goes through a long litany of Pulitzer Prize winners and Nobel laureates, writers whose works have all been banned. And every single one of them is viewed as one of the great American playwrights, or the great novelists of the world. That's not an accident. I don't think these people are trying to be radical. And by my choice to do this piece, the idea that it might be scary to some people really came as an afterthought. Now, that's not to say that I was insensitive to the subject matter and I was unaware of the power and ugliness of some of the racial epithets. And it's, by the way, it's not just demonstrative, or it doesn't just reveal racism towards African Americans, which it certainly does, and the scars of slavery, but it also reveals the injustices of sexism in our society. It reveals the injustices of it. We have a glimpse at the silly way people view Native Americans, for instance, about just social injustice in general and economic disparity, and about how economic forces cause people to lose contact with their highest selves. These issues were relevant then, they're relevant today.
Gentlemen, have you ever seen such a lovely face, a head, a form as that? Yes, you have only to look, and you will behold the most lovely nigger you ever saw. That's a fact, sir. And I'll put you down at $1,500. You say you didn't say anything. Well, you smiled. And no one has a right to smile at this stand unless they mean something. 1,600.
How important this play is by just simply stepping up on that block and hearing those words and letting them truly not just as the character, oh, I'm on this block being sold, but truly letting Shannon just embrace the importance of this moment. And as soon as I let my guard down and just melted into that character and heard Rob as the slave trader saying those words, I couldn't believe how the tears began to flow. And I still have a hard time in rehearsal getting through that moment. And it helped me understand why this play is so important, not only for learning about our history, but seeing how we've progressed as a nation. One of the first things I believe I told Harrison when we were doing the read-through was that I don't think I would have even wanted to be a part of this project if we were going to sugarcoat any wording in it. Of course, mainly being the N-word. If we're going to do the play and share this history, let's just put it out there the way it really was. And I love that, about this.
God made a portion of the men to be the workers and a portion to be the thinkers. How good God is.
Well, as far as the religious aspect, I've had a hard time with the preacher. I play the preacher in the show, and number one, I disagree with a whole lot of things that he says. When in that time period, the church was saying that God sanctioned the slavery, and interpreting the scripture to make it work for them, and that's been tough for me. To try to see that interpretation and try to deal with that. The preacher is also very wordy, and he's tough.
What did you say your name was, child?
Mary Williams.
I thought you said it was Sarah when you first come in.
Oh, yes, Sarah Mary Williams. Sarah's my first name, Mary's my middle name. Some calls me Sarah, some calls me Mary.
Oh, that's the way it is.
Playing a little boy has been interesting. I don't consider myself very boyish. I think the most boyish thing about me might be my haircut, and that's about it. I've had to completely readjust the way I sit, walk, my mannerisms, and I think that was kind of a humorous challenge during the rehearsal process. Would be when we'd be in the middle of something and Harrison would be like, "Stop crossing your legs!"
Right.
It's like everything was good, and then you fell down like a little girl, and running like a girl. I didn't realize I run so much like a girl, but there's definitely a difference between the way a boy would run and a girl runs. I will say the most difficult part was during the Mrs. Loftus scene, because I'm a woman playing a boy, playing a girl.
Or what you think a girl is.
Or what a boy would think a girl is.
Right.
So it was hard to not just play a girl. And I've had notes several times from Harrison saying, "You're a little too good at being a girl." Which, I don't know, what can you do?
Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground.
Oh, don't you wanna go to that gospel feast, that promised land, where all is peace? Deep river, Lord, I wanna cross over into campground.
I was listening to or watching rather, an interview on YouTube, and a gentleman said, if I could just get high school students to realize that the way Martin Luther King was is the equivalent of Frederick Douglass in his time, which rocked me a little bit. So to to get a sense of the gravitas of the character, I watched some orators, mainly from the civil rights era, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X specifically. It's interesting because like Martin Luther King, he spoke in a very very succinct, specific tone, and he chose his words carefully. Same thing with Malcolm X. They didn't waste language. They were aware of the power of what they said. And in being selective with what they said, they held a great deal of authority in situations where it looks like they wouldn't. I remember seeing an interview, Meet the Press, actually, with Dr. Martin Luther King, and he was getting questioned by different newspapers, like the New York Times, and et cetera, et cetera. And he would receive these questions that said, you know, why are you encouraging African Americans to break laws? Because in doing the sit-ins, they're breaking local laws, because if the owner of an establishment says, get out, you need to get out. What he's saying, what Dr. Martin Luther King was saying was, with the sit-ins, you know, you stay there and you don't act violently. And they said, they were like, why are you encouraging them to break laws? Is this not bad? And you say that you don't want this hostility. Your goal is for there to be an understanding. He said, they were like, how are you achieving this understanding when you're asking them to break laws? And Dr. Martin Luther King composed himself, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, in the laws of the nation, the Constitution, there are laws. And by breaking these laws, we're actually enforcing these laws.
I've been working for months now on setting up tour dates. And I've had a lot of eye-opening experiences through that. People who are terrified of the piece because they're afraid of how they will be seen if they allow the truth to be told in this way. More than one person has said to me, oh, this is a great project. I believe in what you're doing, but I'm going to have to pass the buck. One prominent school administrator wrote me a very curt email saying we would not be involved in this project. Another school administrator from a different school district said, you know, I pitched it, but they said we're just not ready for this yet. It's 2011. We're not ready for a book that was written in 1878. When are we going to be ready?